Welcome back to Joy of the Hang, where we celebrate the power of connection, the moments that shape us, the people who lift us, and the stories that remind us that leadership isn't just about what we do, it's about how we show up. Today, I'm joined by someone who embodies that truth beautifully, Beth Lawlor, President of U.S. Bank Private Wealth Management. Beth oversees national teams of advisors and specialists across the country, guiding one of the largest wealth management organizations in the United States. But what sets her apart is her heart. With more than 25 years in the industry and leadership roles at UBS, Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, and Wells Fargo, Beth is known not just for strategy and success, but for leading with empathy, authenticity, and humanity. Named one of Crain's New York Business Notable Women on Wall Street, Beth believes that every person brings something unique to the table, and that true leadership begins when we honor the individual behind the title. She's also deeply committed to giving back, from mentoring young professionals to volunteering for CAPIC. Am I saying that right?
Yes, it's a cat rescue.
Animal rescue for over 15 years. Okay. In this conversation, we'll explore what it means to lead with purpose in a high performance world, how to build culture through connection, and why heart centered leadership isn't a soft skill, it's a superpower. So settle in. This is one of those hangs that remind us that success and soul can absolutely coexist. Welcome to Joy of the Hang, and welcome, Beth Lawlor.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here today. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. I'm glad we were finally able to connect.
I know. Absolutely. We've
Yeah.
been working on this for like 6 months.
For a few months.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you
Perfect.
here.
Thank you.
So let's start at the beginning. Take us back. What first drew you to this wealth management industry?
You know, it's really funny. So I might be dating myself a little bit, but when I was young, I wanted to be Nadia Comaneci, and that didn't work out so well. So, when I was in college, I was a psychology major, and I was always interested in how people think, how people build relationships, how you entrust yourself to others, and who you sort of align yourself in your posse with. And so I had this opportunity right after college to join Chase. And I said, I never really thought about a career in finance. And they said, well, it's a management training program. It's a leadership training program. And the skill sets that you need to be a leader are perfectly aligned with a psychology major, because our wealth business is built so much on relationships. So I've found that my studies have really served me well over the last 30 years of really being able to figure out, not only for our clients, but for my team members as well, how you treat people equally, but not the same. Because what motivates you is very different than what motivates Johnny Jones or Sally Smith. And so uncovering, kind of what is behind the person has always been fascinating to me. So it's just been a tremendously rewarding career in wealth management.
All right. So I need to ask a few questions because
Sure.
my daughter just graduated with a psychology degree
Oh, I
as
love it.
well.
I love
So
it.
what were you hoping to do with that? If it
I
wasn't
thought I
that
was going to be a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I thought that's eventually what I was going to do, to counsel people. And it's funny, leading from the heart, as you said, that's sort of, I think, I'm hoping that's my legacy someday, but I think that's what I'm sort of known for. And I thought about a career in just counseling. And although that is incredibly rewarding and so important, especially today with all the mental health challenges that people face, I thought it might eat away at me too much. I thought it might really sort of bring me down instead of lifting me and others up. And so I thought I could have a larger impact if I could lead organizations at a larger scale than working with clients one on one. So I pivoted quite a bit, and I had a few student loans to pay back. So going into Chase right away and in corporate America was a little bit more appealing than taking on more student debt.
I can relate to that because I went to Northeastern, so I wasn't far
Oh,
from you. You're
yes.
at BC, right?
Yes, Boston College.
Yeah. And I was at Northeastern, not far away, probably around the same time.
Hockey
And
rivals.
they were.
Yes,
They
still are.
They are and were, yeah, part of the, what was it, Beanpot? Is what
Yes,
it's called?
the bean pot. Mhm.
Yes, yes. So I remember I majored in journalism, so same thing.
Oh,
I graduated with a degree in journalism and was like, oh my gosh, I have all this debt to pay
Right,
back.
right.
And the jobs were paying less than minimum wage.
Oh,
when
yeah,
you figured out the hours you
sure.
had to put in to pay your dues,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So I ended up in the hotel field.
So same thing.
Same
Yeah,
thing.
you sort of
Just
pivot,
business,
and
yeah.
it sounds like, why didn't you follow your dream? But I feel like I did follow my dream.
Same, yeah.
And my brother and I were first generation college. And so my parents sacrificed so much working 2 jobs so that we could have the education they never had the opportunity to have. And so, I had to take on some student loans to help supplement that. And so, to your point,
Yeah.
graduating with an opportunity to make some money in New York City, and my parents live in New Jersey, so I could commute. So that was appealing as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you can do so much with a psychology degree. My son actually graduated from BC with a psychology degree, and he works in sports management. So
Yeah.
it's
Very
doable.
transferable.
Yeah, for
Yeah, yeah.
sure, for
Well,
sure.
2 things have come up so far so that I have to bring up with our listeners. A lot of listeners might not know who Nadia Comaneci is, so
Oh,
I think we need to first of all
Romanian gymnast
Yeah.
who won, what was it, 10 gold
Yes.
medals? I know I was a little girl at the time, but I
Yeah,
remember watching her, right? She was incredible.
yeah.
Yeah, and I was never a gymnast. I was a basketball player in high school. So that whole flexibility and balance beam thing never really did it for me, but I wanted to be on the podium with the gold medal. And so
Didn't
this
we
is my
all?
podium.
Right?
Exactly. This is my
Didn't we
podium,
all?
being able to, chat with you and with our listeners as well.
I love it. And then you also said something, you said, "I wanted to be someone who leads with heart." What does
Mhm.
that look like for you to lead with heart?
It's really important to me to be a leader that's super authentic, and people use that word a lot, but I've had the nickname over my career of the Velvet Hammer. So I try to get the best out of people in the most gracious way possible. I'm very direct, but yet I feel like when you really know people and you peel back the onion and you know who they are, the little things become the big things. Right. I had a colleague that was taking a massive exam the other day, and he's probably 4 levels below me in the org chart. But I knew about this and he was nervous about it. And I went on to Uber Eats and had his favorite burritos sent to him ahead of time because I wanted to make sure he knew he was loved and honored and you got this. And I think people remember that. They remember when you show up to a wake or a funeral for their family members. They remember when you send the note. In the beginning of the summer, I sent all of my direct reports beach balls and monogrammed beach towels and saying, don't forget to spend tons of time with your family this summer. And so I think that has afforded me the opportunity to create a followership because people know I'm genuine. I'm not a pushover, but I do care about people. And so my employee retention has been really, really good over the years because people liked, I think, to work for a leader that they believe in, that actually cares about them, their family. When someone's going off to college for the first time, they tell me stories, I start crying with them,
Yeah.
and I think that's okay. I don't think you have to be a leader that is so sort of stoic or cold because it's not somebody that I can even relate to. I think leading from the heart matters.
So is that how you would describe being a velvet hammer? That was your term. Does that mean you let people go softly, or what does that
It
I'm
means
trying
that
to
you push them to be the best version of themselves in a way that's more gentle. And sometimes you have to be direct, but I push them because I think some people are capable of so much more. And I don't have a lot of tolerance for mediocrity. I don't gravitate towards people that have energy like yourself. We hit it off right away and really are passionate about our business, our clients, one another. I mean, I think it's Richard Branson that said, when you treat your employees well, the rest just falls into place
Yeah.
because they feel like they wanna do the best they possibly can for you.
Well, and it reminds me of another quote that's people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care,
100%.
right? So
100%.
that is a
Yep.
mantra that I've tried to live by in my career too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you wanna show people that they're valuable to you, and
Right.
they will show up for you in a bigger way.
And I've had people
Yeah,
say to me, "I'm so sorry I disappointed you." I'm like, "No, no, it's not about disappointing me,
right,
but how can we do something differently next time so that you don't disappoint yourself?"
right.
Right? Because we're all, equal, yet it doesn't matter what level in the organization you are. It's an amazing ecosystem, like corporate America or whatever, career people choose. Everybody plays a role. Everybody has a cog in the wheel. And I spend a lot of time in airports. I travel on plane almost every single week. Without the gentlemen and the ladies going like this with their lights, and backing up the plane, where would we be? I went through Newark Airport on Tuesday and I was thanking TSA agents because without them and who are all working without pay right now, where would we be? They're keeping us safe,
Right.
you know? And so I think it really matters to just sort of value everyone, regardless of where you are in the hierarchy.
And I love that because oftentimes people put so much value on the people at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And I always like to lead from the bottom up because I used to say in the hotel business, I was a general manager, and I used to say, without that housekeeper cleaning the room, we don't have a room to sell.
100%.
So, and the
100%.
janitor cleaning the hallways or whatever. I'm like, these are the people that you have to make sure you're rewarding and acknowledging, right?
And I think you learn lessons along the way, right,
Mhm.
Sharon? I worked for a woman once in a large organization, and she was not the definition of an inspirational leader, but she taught me so much about what not to do when I became a leader of a critical mass of people. Specific example, she never would call me directly, even though I was the top salesperson for 3 years in a row.
Mm.
Never would call and say, "Hey, great job, Beth. Thanks for keeping the lights on." Nothing at all. One day she had her assistant call me and say, "So and so is holding for you." And I was like, "Oh, this is my call. This is the recognition." Because when you're in sales, like people like to be recognized,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
There it's a
Mhm.
different wiring. And she gets on the phone and she said, "I'm really concerned. Your entries in Salesforce are the least amount of characters of anybody in the country." I couldn't believe it, Sharon. I was like,
Wow.
wow, I thought this was my call. And I said, well, that's because I don't spend a lot of time writing about what I'm doing. I just put the numbers on the board. And that next week, I left and resigned and went to another firm because I said, you know what? I don't feel valued here. And I said to myself, even though I was, a medium sort of level in the organization, I will never treat people the way that she made me feel when I have a position of authority and a large span of control. And it was the greatest gift, I think, in my leadership career that I worked for somebody that was not so great, right? I
Yeah.
think you can learn a lot from people that aren't great leaders.
Well, and it's reminding me of a story. I love that you shared that because I had a boss once who, when I worked in the hotel business, he owned 15 hotels all throughout New England.
Mm.
And I was having my first child. I was pregnant with my first child when I worked for him. And when I went into the hospital to give birth, he was the owner of all of these hotels was the first phone call I got the next
Oh,
morning.
that is so lovely.
Same thing though. I was just like, I didn't even know the man knew my name.
Right.
And
And
he
he knew you
found
were
out
having the biggest moment of your
and knew
life.
where I was
Yes.
and knew which hospital I was at
Right.
and called to congratulate me and tell me to take my time coming back to work.
Isn't that,
But my
that's amazing.
it's amazing. It's an amazing story. But on the flip side, about a year later, he sold his portfolio to Starwood. Now, Starwood was a big REIT company, and their philosophy changed from people to profits. So, not that we weren't
Mhm.
profitable before, but their whole
Their vision is very different.
oh, it
Yes.
changed. And so I rose through the ranks as a salesperson. I was a director of sales and then rose to a general manager. And so I didn't have a financial background. I wasn't a CFO, right? So I didn't have they were all about what's the budget look like? What are the projections? We need to report to our stockholders. And I went, I want to keep my guests happy. I want to make sure I have relationships with my clients and my
100%.
guests. Like, I'm really not that concerned with, obviously I understood the budgets and the P&Ls and all that stuff. Obviously I understood that. But I was more concerned with making my guests happy than I was making corporate happy,
Right.
you
And
know?
and they don't realize that when you make the
The
guests
guests happy,
happy,
right.
corporate will be happy. Because people have
Exactly.
choices
Mhm.
out there. And that's how we kind of run our businesses. You have choices in wealth management. And so
Yeah.
people like to do business with people they like,
Yeah.
right? People they like, especially
Mhm.
in the intimate setting of a wealth business where you are part of that family when someone passes away, when someone has a baby, when your generational wealth transfer, like you are in their homes, you're in their living room, and you don't want to work with the jerk. You want to work with somebody you really respect and like.
Well, and finances is such a sensitive subject,
Mhm.
right? I mean,
Especially in this country, the
yeah.
discussion around finances, it's almost taboo. People have a
Mhm.
really tough time talking to their elderly parents about finances and kind of, trying to plan for them for the future. And also their children don't like to disclose. I know my parents are 92 and 91. They've been married 69 years, if you can believe that. Not in great health now. My mom has dementia, sadly. My dad is blind. But I remember my father kept from us all of his finances and didn't want us to know. We didn't have a lot, but he didn't want us to know. And when my parents' health started deteriorating, I said to my brother, we need to figure out how to get dad to sort of open the kimono, if you will. And what we did was I tapped into my psychology degree. I said, Dad, if something were to happen to you, you see what's going on with mom, we want to make sure she's protected, that
Mm.
she is taken care of. We need to see kind of what you've allocated, what you have, what Brian and I may need to subsidize. And so that mom, no matter when you go to heaven, mom is safe and happy and well loved. And that is what did it.
Yeah.
So when I always suggest to people, when you have elderly parents that don't want to talk about money, you figure out what might resonate with them and then say, it's for your good. I'm not caring about my inheritance, right? And especially not coming from a family with tremendous wealth, but how do we plan for the future? And people are living so long these days,
Mhm.
right? So talking about finances really matters because we've got a plan
Right.
for sure.
Right. Now, you've grown dramatically and fairly quickly. So you started with Chase in their management program. What was your role there to start with?
I was a trainee for 2 years, and then, I was in public relations, and then I was
Okay.
in the mortgage business, and so then I became much more of a finance slant towards the relationship management, if you will, and so I've had the privilege of working at really good firms, Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, and so I'm just blessed, like, this is the role of my career where I am now because it's the largest span of control. I always say U.S. Bank is a company with a soul. And it really is because it's a Midwestern bank that has now expanded across the entire country's footprint, but hasn't left that Midwestern value, right? Of just being really good to people. Sometimes it
Yeah.
frustrates me being a New Jersey, New Yorker. I'm like, come on, just put the frog on the table. What's the problem? And I'll
Right.
say to folks, what do you think of this idea? They'll say, oh, okay, that's interesting. I'm like, is it interesting or does it stink? Just tell me the truth.
Yeah.
But US Bank is just such an amazing culture that people don't ever want to hurt someone's feelings. So we're changing that a little bit, not about hurting feelings, but more about being direct and realizing that together, if we're direct, we can get to point A to point B faster. And so we're trying to just sort of morph that a little bit, not losing the goodness of the culture, but being a little bit more growth oriented, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you find it's hard to compete with the JP Morgans and the UBSs of the world or
Yeah, I would say that from a technology perspective, I mean, JP Morgan Chase is always, drawer. Ours is very, very good. But what we may have a little bit less of in terms of digital enhancements, we're working on and getting there. But we've got the soul and especially in our business, that overcomes a lot of the competitive advantages others may have. So to know us is to love us. And it's interesting. When I first came to the bank 5.5 years ago, we didn't have a whole lot of presence on the East Coast. And so now we've got, locations, 6 locations in Florida, Atlanta, Georgia. We just planted the flag in Atlanta, Charlotte, all kinds of New York City, tri state area, folks that really just didn't know about us. And when they know us, they love us. So we're
yeah.
expanding more and more and more. And so we just opened a big office less than a year ago here in Sarasota. And we're growing exponentially. So it's been an exciting time to be here.
First of all, as far as like shifting from psychology to finance, was it difficult to learn they're very different,
Very
right?
different,
So
and yeah, numbers kinda give me the hives a little bit, which I probably shouldn't say on a podcast, but fortunately, I've got really smart people that are behind me. You know what it is? It's sort of like I had to go back and take the finance class. I had to go back and take Excel, spreadsheets and what have you. It's sort of like penicillin. You don't wanna take it, and I don't love numbers, and that's my least favorite part of the job, but in order to be able to run the business, you have to understand a P&L. You have to
right.
understand the numbers. I did what I needed to do to be able to have enough knowledge to be successful. And fortunately, I've supported with tremendously talented, well-educated, credentialized, great people that if I really need to get into an algorithm or I really need to get into something very deep, they will guide me. I'll say, tell me what I need to know. Take a look at this and tell me what I need to know to make the decision. So that's been fortunate. But I had to step out of my comfort zone and learn more finance. And I have the Series 24, I have the Series 7. So I had to get all the FINRA licenses that you need to do this role. And as such, you learn along the way because it's a crash course in figuring out, how things work in the securities business, in the finance business. And so I'm proud of that because it was really like nails on a chalkboard for me. The good outweighs the bad in the finance business
Yeah,
for
but you
sure.
said something really important there is that you said that you surrounded yourself with a team of people that supported you in the areas where you felt like you lacked,
Right.
right?
100%.
And so I think that's so important that people hear that. Like you're not expected to know everything.
Right.
You just have to surround yourself and put your pride aside
100%.
and surround yourself with people that know more than you do.
And when you're creating a team, you need to think about what kind of instrumentalist do you want in the orchestra, right? If everybody's super, Wharton School of Business, MBA, finance driven, but they don't have the EQ, and I'm not saying everyone that has an MBA from Wharton doesn't have an EQ, but I'm just saying like you need an eclectic group to really make beautiful music together. So what I may be
Great
lacking with
analogy.
the really deep
Yeah.
financial knowledge, I make up for in the EQ, and I'll be coaching my team of, you may want to have said that differently next time. And here's what may have made more of an impact if we frame it like this. And they'll be teaching me, hey, this trend in this return on equity is challenging. We should look at that. And I'll look and say, yeah, you're right. How do we,
Mm,
make a different impact there? So I think if you're, one of your guests that are thinking about creating a team of whatever you're doing, whether it's nonprofit, for profit, in your family, think about someone or skill sets that marry well together but aren't all the same. You don't
right.
want a team of people that are all the same, right? You want
Right.
different lenses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I want to talk, a lot of our listeners are women, and let's talk to that woman who maybe is going through a divorce or is, again, not comfortable with numbers or
Hmm.
finance, and they're trying to figure out their future, right? So, for example, I'll use me as an example. So, I went through a divorce a few years ago, and in the divorce was given a 401k.
Hmm.
But again, I didn't have, I was like, okay, now what do I do with this? How do I survive? How do you navigate those waters with these women that are really uncomfortable
Hmm.
with, what do I do next? My husband always took care of that, right?
Yes. Yes.
So what would you say to that woman?
Well, it's interesting because women tend to have much less confidence when it comes to money. It doesn't matter if you're going through a challenging situation like a divorce, if you're happily married for 40 years, whatever it may be, men tend to be more confident than women.
Mm,
And that has gone on for years. You think about years ago, women, when they went to college 40, 50 years ago, were either a teaching major, education major, or a nurse.
right.
Now it's 50-50 in the business schools, 50% men, 50% women. And so when we think about the lack of confidence, we actually saw quite a shift during COVID because there were so many podcasts out there that allowed women to be vulnerable to learn more about finance without exposing that they didn't know much, right? So we've seen that gap of education from men to women in terms of financial knowledge close quite a bit. But I would say if you're a woman out there and you're not feeling confident today, take inventory of what you have. Take inventory of what your assets are, what your liabilities are, your home, whether it's liquid assets or assets in a residence, and talk to a financial professional. Map out everything and say, you know what, this is what's important to me. This is where I'd like to be in 5 years, or what I want to make sure my kids are well educated, or I'd like to have get rid of my debt or own a second home, whatever it may be. Everybody's journey is different, but don't be afraid to talk to a professional. And who does that? It may look like you want to talk to another woman, because women tend to connect really well with women. Maybe not, you don't have to have a female advisor, but somebody that really you feel a connection with that's credentialized. So you think about a certified financial planner, a CFP. People say, well, what firm? I mean, obviously, we'd love folks to come to US Bank, but when you look out there, there's a lot of choices now.
Yeah.
Just make sure somebody's credentialized and that they're not just hanging a shingle on the wall
Yeah.
saying, I'm a financial advisor,
Yeah.
because not everyone is the same. And you want to have certain education levels that folks can say, okay, if I had this in my 401k and you're telling me this is what your hope and dream is, this is what you may think about doing. And obviously, you make the choice, but you do it in concert with a professional that has clients that look and feel very similar to what your situation is, particular about a divorce.
So no, this is great advice because I did hire a financial advisor, but I didn't know, I didn't trust him.
Hmm.
Okay. So there was this level of, I think somebody referred me to him,
Hmm.
right? And I didn't shop around. I didn't know what to look for in a
Hmm.
financial advisor. I just knew that I really didn't know what I was doing with my money. What kind of questions should you ask when you're looking for a financial advisor? And then what should you expect them to do for you? Like, do you expect that they will contact you a couple times a year? How often should you be evaluating your portfolio? What kinds of things should you look
Well,
for?
first, you want to find somebody that you're comfortable with,
Yeah.
right? I find it, as a woman, you want someone to ask you a lot of questions, right? Not just assume and start telling you information about who you are and what you should do. I think that is a key. The key to finding somebody you're going to gel with is who asks you the questions and really wants to get to know you and what's important to you. As I mentioned before, credentials matter, going to a top rate firm, but also that individual. How long have they been in the business? What does their client base look like overall? How many clients do they have? And just because they've been in the business a long time doesn't mean it's a great fit for you. But you want to have a certain amount of experience so that they've ridden some of the markets, right? The markets are volatile, they go up and down. How have they managed through that? Ask them the questions about how do you guide someone through, with the tariffs and you see, sort of volatility in the market every day. How have you been guiding your clients through that? What's your philosophy on sort of long-term investing? What's your philosophy on Bitcoin? Whatever it may be, you come with a list of questions. Tell me about your average client. And if a lot of the clients they're talking about don't really look or feel like you, maybe it's not the right person. It's good that you got a referral, but I would say interview at least three people, and then go, you'll know. Women, we are amazing creatures. We know that connectivity and that intuitive sort of bond that you have right away. It's funny, men tend to be more confident even as advisors than women, which is interesting because I always tell people when there's a job posting out there, there could be 10 criteria, Sharon. If a man doesn't have 8 of them, but has 2, they'll say, "I'm posting for that job. I could do that job." If a woman
Doesn't
doesn't
have
have
all 10.
1
Yeah.
thing, I'm not qualified.
Right.
Why is that? It's the confidence level. And so that's why I do things like this, the important conversations with women like yourself to help bridge that gap so that women can empower themselves because finance isn't so complicated. It's a language that women need to be fluent in. We need to be fluent. You don't need to know everything, but you need to know some basics. So when you're shopping for an advisor, who's that person you feel a connection with that really has the experience that you think is going to serve you well?
Are the products that are available, stock markets, money markets, all of that, is it available to all the different firms? So can anybody go in or are there JP Morgan specific
Yeah.
accounts?
Firms do have specific, products and services. I would say by and large, you can be well serviced in most firms. It's really more of the relationship. So it's not like, if you were to come to US Bank, well, we don't have this particular fund. You have such a plethora that your advisor will guide you. What I found is women in particular are very into impact investing. So I want to invest in something that's going to help me give back to the world. This fund supports the rainforest in Brazil or what have you. So if that's important to you, make sure that the firm that you choose has those type of,
Interesting.
of products and solutions available to you. I would say digital capabilities. We do a really good job of marrying our digital capabilities with our human capabilities because people, they live on their phone. They just want to be able to check out your account, see where the money is today. Did this check clear? How's the market doing? Where's my equity portfolio? You should be able to do that all on your phone.
So you mentioned Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general. Is that something that US Bank is getting involved with?
So we do have that capability. I'm probably not the expert to speak with that. It's more of my chief investment officer, Eric Friedman. But people like to talk about it a lot, and they want to make sure that folks have capabilities, that firms have capabilities in that. But I'm certainly not the expert in Bitcoin for sure.
Heard on another recent podcast that you were on that AI is a big topic right now.
Big
So how
topic.
is AI changing the financial
So
world?
the way we're using AI is, and it's incredible, right? I mean, you can go to ChatGPT and pretty much like get a response for anything. In fact, my son recently got married in Boston in July, and I was struggling with how do I start out, my speech. My husband and I were giving a speech at the rehearsal dinner, and I started putting into ChatGPT. He's a humble kid. He's, always been an overachiever, but never wants the attention, blah, blah, blah. It spit out the most incredible rehearsal dinner speech ever. Sorry, Brendan. But I literally
That's
tweaked that and
funny.
it was amazing. So when I think about AI for us, It doesn't replace people where we are. It affords us more capacity to do different things with the clients we have.
Right.
So, for example, if we can automate some of the systematized things that we're going to do now, it takes 30% off of my day to day workload so that I can focus on going and spreading the word to more potential clients, doing things like this because I have AI to write the next leadership, council agenda that I'm going to do. It's not a replacement. It's a supplement
It's a
for,
tool.
it's a tool.
It's
It's a
another
tool.
tool in our
And
toolbox.
people are really
Yeah.
afraid of AI. I've found lately when we start talking about it, because they'll
Yeah.
say, well, it's going to replace people. Maybe in some industries, there are certain things that it might replace a human, but in the wealth business, it's all about humans.
Yeah.
So that's never going to go away. You're always going to want an advisor.
Well, and my thing is, I guess it can, like, I use it a lot for marketing, right? And for maybe a TikTok post or an Instagram post. So, but I still have to put the information in, right?
Hmm.
You still have to say, this is, it
100%.
requires a human to say, this is the feel I want, like you did with your son, So they can't
You
just,
can't no, because then we'd be a bunch of robots, right? And that
yeah,
wouldn't serve anybody well. Like, the best thing about this planet is the people that are on it and the relationships that we build over time. Like,
right,
you and I hit it off right away. We didn't know each other a year ago.
right.
And so to be able to have these opportunities, it doesn't come through a system. It doesn't come through AI. It comes through human connection.
Oh, yeah. I'm all about connection.
I love it. I love it.
I'm
I
all
love
about.
it.
All right. So, who were some key mentors in your journey and what impact have they had on your leadership style?
So, my most favorite professional mentor was a man who's named David Canigan at Morgan Stanley. He pushed me to be better than I ever thought possible. He gave me a seat at the table that was typically filled with middle-aged white guys. Nothing wrong with middle-aged white guys. I'm married to one for 30 years, Kevin Lawlor, shout out. But he recognized that I was passionate and that I had creative ideas and that I cared deeply, and he said, I'm going to bring you to this meeting. I'm going to put you in front of so and so. Like, you need a
Yeah.
Sherpa in your career, in your life. He was my Sherpa.
Mhm.
He was my guy that brought me into the room to be able to be my best self. And folks were exposed to me, that then they'd start asking questions, right? But if you never get a seat at the table, if you never get brought into the room, that's why I say to women, don't always think it's going to be a woman, although I really believe in lifting each other up as women for sure and not being so judgy as sometimes we can be. Sometimes men are the best Sherpas because they have a seat, that we want that seat. And so David Canigan from Morgan Stanley is a huge friend of mine. And in fact, for this role 5.5 years ago, they asked for a reference and I used him as my reference. And I was like, Dave, please don't be so direct as you normally. He's like, I told them, if you're looking for super fancy, elegance, like, that's not what you're going to get. You're going to get a grinder. You're going to get somebody who's in the foxhole with their team, who cares deeply. I'm like, okay, I guess that's okay. Hopefully they want that. It was so funny, but we're still great friends to
Oh,
this day. And it was because of him. I attribute my leadership journey and trajectory to him for sure.
I love that. What advice would you give women rising through the ranks in financial services?
I would say do a great job at the job you're in. Even if you don't love the job you're in, people notice folks that work incredibly hard, that care deeply, that give back to the greater good. Don't be so self centered. You want to do well yourself, but being a great team member really matters. And that sounds cliche, but folks remember who sends that email to say, you know what? I'm going to copy your boss on this because you did a tremendous job in
Mm,
helping me. Giving other folks credit, not me, but we. There's no I in team, as they say. Do a great job in the job that you're in. Network. Really, don't ask for people to go to lunch with you. I get that asked all the time, and not that I don't love to eat lunch, but I do. But I don't have the time. I don't have the bandwidth. But I always have 15 minutes. So I always suggest to people, send an email, reach out, send a text, whatever it may be, and say, "Can I have 15 minutes on your calendar for coffee or tea or whatever, just to kind of pick your brain on something?" I always say yes to that because everybody can figure out 15 minutes. So
I
network
like
with
that.
people that you want to, learn more from, that might be outside of your current ecosystem, and spread the good word about who you are.
I like that. That's great. So, looking ahead, what kind of legacy do you hope to leave behind?
I hope people will say that they are a better team member, a better leader, a better person, having known me and having worked for me than before they worked for me. I hope so. I work for that every single day, that when they think of Beth Lawlor, they will think, wow, she made a difference in my career and in my life.
I love that. So, shifting gears, going to your personal side, you've stayed deeply involved with Boston College.
Love my school, my Eagles. Terrible football season, as we talked about,
I
Sharon.
know.
But,
Just before we recorded the podcast, Beth was telling me she's supposed to go to Boston to support her BC Eagles. Apparently, they have a really bad record right now.
Terrible. We lost to Notre Dame last week, which my brother went to Notre Dame, so it's a big family rivalry. We had a good time tailgating. That was the plus. We had a great time tailgating.
All right.
So,
well, BC, Beth will not probably be there this weekend when you play, but
no.
Go Eagles.
Go Eagles.
Go
Yes.
Eagles. We're still rooting for you. And you also are involved with, how do you say that? See, CAPIC.
CAPIC Cats.
Just like it looks. CAPIC Animal Rescue, which is a cat animal rescue.
Yes.
And you met my beautiful cat.
Oh my gosh. I'm looking at him over there right now. He's so gorgeous. And he's a rescue also.
He is a rescue. So tell me what draws you to these communities.
You know what? I love animals. I always have loved animals. Animals don't ask you for anything. They just want to be loved.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And when you find people that are animal lovers, you and I were talking about this, and you rescue an animal, it's because you want to give back and make their life better. They don't want it. I can't, get anything from my cat other than love. It's not like my cat Peanut or Winnie are going to promote me. But they are such company and such zen and peacefulness,
Calm you, don't they? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, at times that I've had challenges in my career or my personal life, my cat's 18 and he would sit right by my side, and it was just hearing him purr was so wonderful and loving.
Yeah.
And so I find a lot of fulfillment out of rescuing those that just need our help. So I fostered a million kittens over the years. My husband would come home from work and look in the bathroom and he's like, "Are you kidding me? The mama and the family of 6 little kittens." And I said, "They're only going to be here for 3 weeks until they wean off the mom, and then they're going to find homes." He's like, "I've heard this story before, seen this movie before." But I love animal rescuers because there's just a certain connection of the heart that you have when you save an animal. So
thank you for doing that. And I was telling you, so my cat actually went to college with my daughter.
So great.
But I have to say, the best part about it is exactly what you said. It brought her so much comfort because it's such a stressful environment.
100%.
So she said that a lot of her friends would come visit her room just to hang out with the cat because they just needed to feel some sense of
And I
normalcy.
think they do that now on college campuses. They'll bring dogs during exam time for people to pet and just kind of have that calmness that an animal brings. And they just want to be loved. They're not needing anything. They're not asking to be on your calendar. They just want to sit and watch the Hallmark Channel with you.
Yeah. Well, sometimes cats have a mind of their own. I don't know about your cat.
Well, Peanut's so old, he just wants to hang out.
He just wants to hang out.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Cats disappear. I had a different cat before him, and I never saw him.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. This one is a lover. He likes to be right by our side or in our bed. And
yeah.
Does your cat sleep with you?
On my feet. Yeah, my husband loves that.
Both of them, or just?
Well, Winnie. I have a cat, Peanut, who's 18. My kids were allergic to nuts. So Santa Claus brought Peanut 18 years ago because it's the only nut they'll ever be able to have. And we have Winnie, who's 13, and his name is Winston Churchill, but we call him Winnie. I love anything British. He's 24 pounds. So he has a tough time jumping up on our bed, Sharon, because he's kind of a chunky monk, but we love him so much. And he actually was outside the other day in our backyard and killed a bird. We were so proud of him. Not that I wanted to kill a bird. I felt bad for the bird, but I was like, "Oh, Winnie, go get him."
He still has it.
He still has it. Maybe he sat on him. I don't know. But he is a chunky monk.
What color is he? Is he like Garfield?
He's gray. He's a super soft gray with white mitten paws.
Oh.
And I think he just probably swatted him, and he's so big, the poor bird didn't stand a chance.
Oh my gosh. You might need pictures of Winnie and Peanut to put up.
I will. I'll send you to them. They're one's 6.5 pounds, one's 24. So you you will see quite the contrast.
God. All right. So I know you also have children. How has your family influenced your leadership? And what's it like to see your kids continue the Boston College
Oh,
tradition?
I'm so grateful. My daughter and my son, so my daughter Jillian and my son Brendan both went to BC. They loved their experience. So they both live in Boston now. And so they come to our tailgates with their friends. So that's one of the reasons why we continue the season tickets and tailgate pass, even though the team is terrible, because I get to be joyful with my
With
kids.
your
But
kids,
it's
yeah.
great having that legacy. My husband jokes he's the only one that didn't go to BC. And I said, when you retire, you should go get some masters there,
Yes.
something, just so that he has an MBA, but not from BC. And I said, we'll find something, that for you to, so you can be an Eagle too. But what's interesting? My son went to an all boys Catholic school, and my daughter went to an all women's Catholic school, and I was one of the few women that were working at this school, and a lot of stay at home moms. My very very best friend Jill Stanley is a stay at home mom, not judging at either way, but I was one of the few working moms. When my daughter graduated, she said to me during her graduation toast at her party, she said, "Mommy, I'm so glad that you showed me and my friends that there are options out there. Not that you
Oh,
have to be a career person, but you made it happen. And I never felt like you weren't present. You would run in sometimes with your briefcase and your suit on and be there at the assembly, and everyone else had already, taken their seat, but I knew you were there, and you set an example that you can have it all, maybe not all at one time, but you can really make a difference in the corporate environment or in a professional environment, if you choose not to take the path of being a stay-at-home mom, which is very, very hard work also, for sure.
oh, it is, yeah. But I love that you shared that. Was there ever a moment when you felt like you couldn't have it all and it was too much?
100%. I feel like that almost every day.
Do you?
No,
Okay.
I mean,
No, I mean, it's good
it's
to
a
be
lot.
honest about that
It's a
because
lot.
we make it
Yes.
seem so easy, right?
Well,
But
being in finance in 2008 was a really tough time. My husband works at Morgan Stanley, and so every day we woke up and we would see what the markets were doing overseas, and the Dow was going to be down 1,000 points again and again and again. And it was very stressful because we have two kids in private school, we had a home, lots of financial responsibilities, and you're seeing your portfolios diminish every single day. So it was weighing really heavy on a lot of us, right?
Mhm.
And we just didn't know. Even the best financial professionals couldn't have predicted what happened. And so I think that there are always times as women, whether you're working outside the home or not, where you question what you're doing and am I doing the right thing for my children? I think I've set a good example from my kids. We have a great relationship. My daughter-in-law now, Sarah, who's a nurse practitioner in Boston, like, we talk about just great things, great subjects. And even though we're very different in terms of our career paths, I would say that, you know, bungling raising your kids is probably the worst thing that you could ever do as a mom. And I had opportunities when my kids were in high school to have more responsibility and promotion opportunities, but it would have required 80% travel. And I said, I got to be there. My daughter was a competitive fencer. She was actually captain of the team at Boston College and won the bronze medal in the ACC championship. So she was
Wow.
quite the athlete. And I said, if I'm not there for her, when you have a kid in travel kind of sports, if you're not there, they're never going to have the opportunities to really grow and get recruited from a college and all of that. And so I had to end up working for somebody that I didn't respect as much. I knew I could do the job better, but I had to just step back and take the job that I was in and say, someday I will have a role like that, but not now. I need to be home for my kids.
So I'm curious, did you find that your husband had that same sort of, not guilt, but that same sort of fire to want to be there for the kids that we do as moms?
I don't
Do you know
I
what I'm
don't
do you
he
know what I'm
loves
saying?
them equally
Well, of
as I
course,
do,
but
but no is the answer.
right.
And that's not a diss to Kevin Lawlor or any husband out there. I think
No.
they want to be with their kids and they want to be present. But women, Sharon, are, as I said earlier, amazing creatures. We have this constant ticker tape in our head of things that we need to do,
Yeah.
right? Somehow the kids opened up the fridge and there was food in there. Somehow their uniforms were clean and hung up. And it's not that my husband or other husbands wouldn't do it. they just don't necessarily
They're not wired
think
that way.
to do it. Like
Right.
I'll call my husband at work today and say, "Hey, he's like, I'm working. Can you call me well, what do you think I'm doing?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think just are wired differently, that we have the ability to multitask in ways that men typically don't. Not all,
Yeah.
but in my experience has been. I was joking yesterday. I said, when you have kids that are of school age, grade school or high school, do you think Kevin Lawlor ever thought that come August, you needed to fill out all these forms and have them go get their physical?
Right.
They just don't think like that. It's not that Kevin wouldn't take the kids to the physical. Of course he would. He loves them. But he didn't think in advance that this is a process that we need. I'll tell you one really quick story. My daughter was in 5th grade. I'll never forget it. I was in Los Angeles on a business trip. And as I said, they went to Catholic school, so they didn't get a bus. They had a carpool from people in our neighborhood. She calls me and she says, "Mommy, who's driving carpool tomorrow?" And I said, "Isn't Daddy right there?" She's like, "Yeah, but he doesn't know anything." And I was like, you know what? He doesn't know anything. He doesn't. The
That's so
job of the
funny.
husbands when the women are traveling on business is like the second string quarterback. They're just there to keep everybody safe until the first string comes back in, right?
Right.
Chicken nuggets and cut up grapes 3 nights in a row. That's okay. They're safe. They're bathed. They're in bed on time.
And they're going to school.
They're going to school. He takes them to
We're
school.
getting
Whatever.
there.
But, you think he's thinking about the birthday party, gift that he's got to get for Saturday? Absolutely not. So, yeah, I always think of that. It's he doesn't know anything. I'm like,
That's
you're right.
hilarious.
Jillian, he doesn't know anything.
That's
so
hilarious.
I know. My husband laughs and shakes his head, but he's like, that's fair. That's
Yeah,
fair.
it is fair. It's so, but anyway, I just think that's important for, some of our female listeners to hear,
Yeah.
because we are, not that we're expected to show up at every soccer game or be at every band practice or do all of that, but I have an innate desire
100%.
to be,
And I'm a little bit of a control
present.
freak too.
yeah,
Kevin will tell me, well, it's because I don't do it right. So I'll just let you do it. I'm like,
right.
that's fair.
Yeah.
I do like things done a certain way, so
Yeah,
I
me
just do it
too.
myself. And that's okay. And whether you work outside the home or you're in the home,
Yeah.
you're still running the world in your family.
Yeah.
For the most
Well,
part.
and my husband now tells me, if you need something from me, you need to be clear, because I'm not a mind reader.
Right.
And
I've heard that.
right. I'm not a
yeah.
mind reader. Sometimes I'm just like, but wait a minute.
Right.
Dinner has to be served
Exactly.
7 nights a week.
100%.
Right?
100%.
You know that these
Right.
things.
The uniforms need to be
Right.
clean. Yeah.
You took the last roll of toilet paper.
Exactly.
You go by the
We
grocery
love
store.
men. We need these creatures, but they are wired
we?
different.
Do we?
It's true.
Oh,
But I will
God.
say, anything to do with the car or anything like that, maybe that sounds very sexist, but there are certain divisions of labor in the Lawlor
Yeah.
house that I don't get involved in.
Right.
Lawn care, cars, anything like that.
Well, that's true. That's true. I will give him that. And if the trash needs to be taken out, even though I'm capable of
That's right.
doing it, I'll probably say,
I don't do that.
hey,
either.
Scott,
Exactly.
come take out the trash. All right, let's have a little more fun. Let's start with our lightning round.
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Well, see, that one's not going to work because you don't drink coffee.
I've never had a cup of coffee in my life.
Well, that's a good thing.
I drink a lot of tea. But people find that very fascinating. They're like, how do you have this energy without coffee? I went to college in London, my junior year in college. And back then we didn't have Starbucks everywhere. So I
wish we still didn't.
I would start drinking tea,
Sorry, Starbucks.
and I just was hooked, and I didn't want to ever change. So I just only drink English breakfast tea.
So when you get up in the morning, what's your routine? What's your morning routine?
English breakfast tea,
Yeah.
100%. And I will tell you, let me give you a great thing about my husband. He always gets to work earlier than me. He's like a 6 a.m. kind of guy in the office every day. If I'm home and not traveling, he will bring tea to my side of the bed in a Yeti mug, so that when I wake up, whatever time that will be, it's usually like 6:45, 7 to start my day, I take off the top and I start drinking my tea and I watch a little bit of the news and then I start my day. but it's so lovely
I
to
love
have that gift
Yeah.
every day. I know today I wake up in a hotel, nobody's bringing me tea. No one's,
Oh, I love that you
yeah,
shared that though, because I think that's so
he
important.
knows
It's
it's
about the
important.
little things.
Little things become the big things. And
That's
he is
right.
so kind. He is such a kind soul, knowing that I don't have to get out of bed to go downstairs to make my tea and blah, blah, blah. Not that that's a big challenge, but it's nice to just start my day with a little bit of love right next to you.
I love that. Do you
Yeah.
meditate or journal or do anything like that?
I don't. I should.
Okay.
And I've been more mindful lately in the last couple of years. My daughter's really helped me with that. She took a mindfulness class and, kind of gave me some pointers of when to take a deep breath and just let things go. I love the Mel Robbins book, Let Them.
Yeah.
Have you read that?
Oh yeah, it's on my
Oh,
shelf.
yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
know. And so
Yeah.
I have a tough time sometimes letting people just let them,
Yeah.
but I remind myself every time I'm in a situation like that, like maybe that's not how I would have done it, but you know what? It's okay.
Right.
My husband's packing the tailgate. Maybe that isn't exactly what I would have put in the car, but you know what? He's packing the tailgate and I don't
Right.
need to because I'm down here in Sarasota. So
Right.
let him, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Good.
great.
That's awesome. Okay, so favorite book or podcast you'd recommend? You kind of just did. Let Them by Mel
I do
Robbins.
love Mel Robbins' podcast, and
Yes,
I'm
I do
now a
too.
fan of yours
Well,
as
I love
well.
Mel too. I
Of
love Mel too.
course.
So
I love the book Make Your Bed, which sounds crazy. It's, oh my gosh, Admiral
I know who it is. Yeah,
yeah,
what is his name?
Admiral,
And I know where you're going with
McCracken,
this.
oh my gosh. Anyway, just look it up,
Look it
ladies.
up.
Make Your Bed,
But
and
tell the story.
it's so simple. It's advice about start your day with accomplishing one
One
thing,
thing.
and that leads to so much. Get up, and for those who, get up, take a shower, don't leave the house without making your bed. Make that bed so that when you come home, it's finished, it's nice, it's inviting to get into, but it talks about the little things along the way that you can accomplish without
Yeah,
making something so monumental. So starting out with making your bed. He was in the military for
he
many, many
was.
years.
I
And in the
love it.
military, you have to make your bed. But he was just kind of giving us, right, the advice of, you
You
know,
can see his speech on YouTube, and I wish I could remember his name too, because it's very powerful. And it is. It's all
it's
about
fantastic.
doing the one thing and then the next right thing and then the next right thing.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. It's a series of things. And some days you accomplish more than others,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And kind of know your body cycles too, right? I know around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I sort of hit a wall. I either need more tea or a Snickers bar
Or a
or
20-minute nap.
yes,
Now is where
I am
I'm
a big
at.
napper, not at
Yeah.
work, don't worry, but I
Yeah.
do I do love a good power nap. But if you know you're super productive in the morning, put the frog on the table, I say. Try the hardest thing that you have to do that day first, if that's
Yeah.
how you're wired, right?
So I learned this. I was a realtor for a little while, and I had the best um, broker. I forget what they call her. Anyway, broker. And she would say, "Eat the frog first." And I
Mhm.
was like, "What does that mean?" She
Yeah.
goes, "Whatever is the hardest thing that
Yes.
you have to do it first
Yeah.
and get it off."
Because otherwise you're doing these little things, but it's always in your mind. I've gotta
Mm.
call that guy. I've gotta tell him the bad news. I've gotta call, and say we can't make it to the wedding or whatever it is. Just get it out of the way, and then you can free yourself from your head to do other things.
So hard to do. One thing that people would be surprised to learn about you. Do you have a hidden talent?
I love to sing. I love karaoke. I love to sing.
What's your go-to song?
Highway to Hell, AC/DC. Oh, yeah. I'm a big AC/DC fan. I
I
know.
want to hear you sing it right now. I have a karaoke machine. I'm bringing it out.
On the way to hell. Love AC/DC. I know people are surprised by
You
that. I do like country music too. Yeah, usually the surprising thing if people ever ask me that is that I've never had coffee because they can't even imagine.
No, but Highway to Hell is like,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
a
that's my
badass. I
go-to.
like that.
I'm sort of badass sometimes. When I'm in my car,
a
the
girl.
windows are down, and I am cranking, it's AC/DC for sure.
Okay, I'm liking that. I'm liking that. I told you Brian Johnson lives nearby.
I
We're
love
gonna
that.
have to make
I would
that
love to
happen.
go over and say hello.
We're gonna have to make that happen. Okay, two things: best investment and worst investment.
Best investment was in my children. In my
Good
children's,
answer.
sacrificing along the way to send them to a great private school. Not that everyone has to go to private school, but we found the vision and the philosophy of this school in Summit, New Jersey, Oak Knoll School of the Holy Child, where they educate the whole child and not just their brain. and they talk about giving back to the greater good and shining your light on the world. And I think that was one of the reasons why they wanted to go to my alma mater, Boston College. It's a Jesuit school, and it's all about shining your talents on the world. So the best investment has been my kids. I could not be more proud of who they are as human beings. My daughter is a social worker working in hospice care situations in many cases. So she's my bleeding heart that I do what I do so she can help do others, right? I like to
Oh,
say, and
love
my
that.
son is such a good soul too. Worst investment? That's a tough one. I don't really, a few cars along the way. But
I can feel that right now.
right, right. A
All
few
the
cars.
cars are
I don't
getting.
want to put any sort of brand under the bus, but yeah, no, fortunately nothing major in the
All
worst
right.
investment
Well, that's
side.
good. If you could hang with anyone dead or alive,
Dead or alive.
who would it be and why?
Okay, so I had this conversation with my CEO, Gunjan Kedia, who's tremendously talented and amazing. And I asked her that question, and she said, like Gandhi and, or
Jesus
Pope.
Christ. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was like, Rafa Nadal and Matthew McConaughey. She looked at me like I had five heads. Like, is this who I have running our private wealth business? I love Rafa Nadal. I'm fascinated by his tennis career. I followed him so much. I went to the French Open 3 times. I love, love, love him. And Matthew McConaughey, I just think he's a cool dude. I mean, he's just would be fun to hang with,
He
He's
would.
handsome guy and
Uh-huh.
fun, but I'm really into Formula One now. So a lot of women aren't into Formula One. I am really into Formula One racing. So my favorite team is McLaren, British team, and I would love to talk to Lando Norris, their lead driver. Hopefully that will happen someday.
I have a feeling if anybody can make that happen, you
I'm gonna
can too.
try, Sharon.
I
I'm
have
gonna
a
try. I'm gonna be at
feeling.
the Grand Prix in Miami in May, so I'm hoping I can get into the paddock and
Yeah.
tell him. He'll be like, "Who's this crazy lady stalker?" Oh, it'll
You
be a
might
lot of
know a
fun.
few people that can make that happen.
Oh, that
So
would be great.
before I close, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners?
Just that women are so special, and I feel like the more we can lift one another up, the better off we're all going to be. Like rising tide, all boats rise. And oftentimes women, I think, are quick to judge other women, and imagine a world in which we helped one another more and more. Don't be so quick to know what's going on in somebody's head or heart, and give people grace, give people the benefit of the doubt, because they could be dealing with something you know nothing about. And I often find men support each other more than women sometimes support each other. And so I do a lot of these talks across the country just to help inspire women to just be better to one another, and less gossipy. And I hate that sort of vernacular about women that we're gossipy, but I do think that sometimes we like to get the tea and the inside scoop. But just remember that we are such amazing beings, and we're so much better together. We are so much better together than we are apart.
Couldn't have said it better. That's great. So, what a powerful hang we've had today with Beth Lawlor, a leader who reminds us that true success isn't about status or titles, it's about heart. Beth showed us that leadership rooted in empathy and humanity can ripple through an entire organization, and that when we lead with compassion, as you just said, everyone rises. And before we close, I want to leave you with today's joyful act. Reach out to someone you admire, a mentor, a colleague, or even a friend, and tell them how their leadership has inspired you. Those words might mean more than you know. If this episode lifted you, let that ripple continue. Follow Joy of the Hang on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen, and share it with a friend who could use a little reminder that joy and leadership can go hand in hand, because joy grows when we share it, and the hang is always better together. I'm Sharon Stevenson, and this has been Joy of the Hang. Till next time.